Another Australian has died in Afghanistan. Sergeant Todd Langley was killed yesterday and a second soldier was seriously wounded. Even as the Australian death toll climbs, the war remains relatively uncontroversial here because both major parties support it. It's a rare point of agreement in federal politics, which is set to become even more fractious when the government unveils details of its carbon tax on Sunday. Political Editor Chris Uhlmann.
Good news seldom comes from early morning press conferences called at the Department of Defence.
It's with great sadness that I'm here this morning to advise you that an Australian soldier was killed in Afghanistan yesterday morning local time, early afternoon Australian time.
This grim task was the first official duty of the new Chief of the Defence Force.
Sergeant Todd Langley was an exceptionally experienced and decorated soldier. He was on his 5th deployment to Afghanistan and had also undertaken 2 deployments to East Timor.
The list of Australian casualties is growing long. 28 have been killed since 2002, 7 this year. Another Australian was seriously wounded yesterday.
That brings to over 180 soldiers wounded in the course of our time in Afghanistan, 17 this year.
The American Embassy's Independence Day celebrations paused to reflect on the death of an ally in that country's longest war.
And before I continue, on behalf of the United States of America, just want to extend to General HURLEY and to all of the people of Australia condolences about the loss of Todd Langley today.
The US alliance ties Australia to the Afghan war, but it does not bind it. The decision to go to war was made by the coalition government. The decision to stay is supported by both major parties.
Today, I understand that on another day of loss, many Australians would be thinking to themselves, why are we still in Afghanistan? They would be feeling the weight of the toll of the number of casualties we have seen. To those Australians, I offer this reassurance. We are very clear that our national interest lies in pursuing our mission in Afghanistan.
The United States is drawing down its troops, but Australia won't begin to cut its force of 1,500 until 2014, and there's no end in sight to the commitment.
The nature of our involvement will change, but we should anticipate being involved in Afghanistan, assisting with capacity building and in other ways to the end of this decade at least.
The death of a soldier is about the only thing these days that can unite this bitterly divided House.
Mr Speaker, a brave Australian died yesterday. He died on the battlefield from his wounds.
This is a sad day, but we should never allow sorrow to eclipse the pride that we feel in our armed forces and the work they're doing. We best honour the fallen by remaining true to the cause they served.
As a mark of respect, I ask all members and all present to signify their approval by rising in their places.
It was a brief respite before what seems like the eternal argument continued.
Will she bring forward her carbon tax announcement to today so that this parliament can fully scrutinise the biggest structural change in our economic history?
The government will finally, mercifully, announce the details of its carbon tax on Sunday, ending the months of speculation and phony war over the package. And the Prime Minister is well aware that her future hangs on selling it.
I will be out day after day following Sunday, taking every question from every Australian family who wants to ask me. I will be travelling to all parts of the country, prepared to take questions from Australian families about how we are pricing carbon, what we are doing to assist families and what we are doing to protect jobs.
The final package is the work of the government, the Country Independents and the Greens. There's a long way to go before it becomes law, but the hard negotiation is done.
My discussions with the Prime Minister and the Minister have been if the legislation reflects the agreement, I'll support it.
All have had to compromise and the Greens have to sell that to their base.
So there will be things that you will be delighted about, there will be things that you are disappointed about, that reflects what happens when you have a negotiated agreement. But step back and think big picture for a moment.
The coalition's demanding Parliament be recalled next week. That won't happen. This battle will be fought in the streets and shops and in the pubs and clubs over the 6 weeks of the winter recess, and more detail won't make the fight any less willing.
Tony, Windsor and Rob Oakeshott, we're disgusted in you. We're absolutely disgusted. You have done this to us, and you're going to be held responsible with the Greens, with that lunatic group that turned up the other day, and with the Labor Party who just deserted what they used to believe in.
The Prime Minister believes that this is the beginning of her fight back, but she's told her caucus it won't see an instant jump in the fortunes of her government. And we're yet to see who the losers are, or how this all adds up given the huge level of compensation being promised. And as the Prime Minister knocks on doors, the question some of her ministers want answered is anyone listening?
I will be wearing out my shoe leather, literally, Mr Speaker, around the country, making sure that Australian families who want answers about the carbon pricing package get those answers.